two plants that will grow in North America in just about any climate zone. Well, one needs warmer weather, and that's the first one. Is Yaupon holly. Yaupon holly is a member of the holly family, like the spiky little bushes with berries on them. It actually contains caffeine. It is the only native plant in North America that contains caffeine. It likes a hotter climate. I cannot grow it up in the mountains. It's hardy to about 7A. So much in North Carolina it will grow. It grows very well in Texas, for instance. I told you about Frank Salvato's wife, CJ. She's an herbalist. She has a Yaupon holly tea company. She grows Yaupon holly, bottles tea, and ships it all over the country. It's fantastic stuff. And if you live where you can grow Yaupon holly, I absolutely do so. If you live in a cold climate like me, you can grow it in pots and bring it indoors. Put it in a greenhouse or just bring it inside over the winter. It's very hardy. It's a bush. It's considered a weedy bush in many areas. People try to tear it up and eradicate it. It's fantastic. It has medicinal benefits. I'll get into in just a second. But the other one is called Mormon tea. It's called Mormon tea because it's a stimulating beverage that is allowed in the Mormon religion. It doesn't contain caffeine. It actually contains ephedra. You may, if you're an herbalist, you may know it by its Chinese name, ma huang. Now, ephedra is isolated and synthesized in the chemical form is what we know as ephedrine, and that can be very dangerous. You take too much of that, and you can have a heart attack. It'll raise your blood pressure and all that. In its natural form, a tea made from Mormon tea or Chinese ephedra, ma huang, is really no more potent than caffeine. A cup of coffee. And I particularly like it. I used to have it before I'd take a test when I was in college. Just get the brain going. Cup of coffee and some ma huang tea. With anything that raises the blood pressure, increases the heart rate, even a cup of coffee or a Coke, a Pepsi, you got to be careful with it. So if you have heart issues, if you have high blood pressure, stay away from it. If you don't, these two stimulant teas and Mormon tea or ma huang will grow in even really cold climates, desert climates. I mean, so it's really, one of these should work for you wherever you live. While many plants have traditionally been utilized as herbal teas, and there's several substitutes for imported tea that were used during the American Revolution and the Civil War, tons of them, from sweet fern to Kentucky coffee tree to, dandelion and chicory roots roasted. They didn't contain caffeine. These two actually are stimulative. Yaupon holly contains caffeine, a pretty large amount actually. It's pretty potent. In fact, it was used by Native Americans, Indians, ceremonially. They drink it, they get all worked up, and they drink it till they puked. I don't know why they wanted to puke, but that gives it its Latin name, which is actually vomitoria. If you drink enough something caffeinated, or if you use enough tobacco, especially if you're not used to it. Remember that first cigarette you ever had and how nauseous it made you? It's that kind of thing. But a cup of it, a glass of iced tea, it makes a wonderful iced tea. I actually prefer Yaupon holly to real tea, that comes from the camellia family. Very, very good. So it contains caffeine. Native Americans used it both medicinally and ceremonially. European settlers found it, a nice hot beverage, an eye opener in the morning, and drank it not strong enough to make them puke. But it's everything that coffee's good for. It helps break up congestion. It can help with diarrhea. It can help with constipation. It can just it's good, and it also can help with allergic type reactions. But anyway. Mormon tea contains ephedrine, which is a stimulating alkaloid. As I said, it can be very dangerous in large concentrations. As a tea, it's pretty innocuous. It's pleasant, it's invigorating, it has a really floral smell. I would say almost an incense type smell. Medicinally, these herbs help open the lungs and ease asthma. They're diuretics, and they're invigorating. They can help break a fever. They can ease symptoms of depression. Another reason, you want to have these around. You don't want to be depressed in a bad situation. Yaupon holly, like I said, is a southern plant. It likes hot weather, mild winters, hardy to about zone 7A. Mormon tea can grow in cold climates and dry, high places. And its cousin Ma Huang is even more hardy. That's the Chinese version of the same plant. You may not think of such herbs in terms of survival, but they can save an asthmatic's life. And, they make life a lot more pleasant. I have my morning cup of coffee. I'm not a tea drinker, except as iced tea. I'm the one herbalist around who does not like herbal teas. I like my cup of coffee. I don't want a substitute for coffee. But if in a bad situation, I would be more than happy with Yaupon holly and Mormon tea. It's really good stuff. I used to drink a lot more of it than I do now. Another one that I want to mention as a beverage is wintergreen. Wintergreen was one of America's first great exports. The oil of wintergreen is like aspirin in its pain-reducing and fever-lowering properties. Absolutely essential to have on hand. It grows wild all around me, so I just pick it in the wild. But you would really it's a pretty plant too. It would look good in your garden. Applied externally, it's good for arthritis and muscle aches. Eventually, birch, an oil from birch, was substituted for wintergreen because it takes a lot of wintergreen to make a batch. It's small and it's somewhat rare in some places. The twigs of birch have the same. I am blanking on the name of that oil that comes from wintergreen. But anyway, birch has the same thing and can be used interchangeably. So spot the birch trees out in the woods, plant one in your yard, and you can use these to substitute for aspirin, for liniments. You can add them to your bath. They're fantastic for arthritis, strained muscles. Really, really good. But wintergreen is an excellent addition to the garden, both as food and medicine. The berries are nice. You can eat them out of hand, and they'll be around all winter. It's just one of those things, one of the few wild edibles you can find in the wintertime. The leaves, especially combined with mint, make a great flavoring for candies and teas. They're extremely tasteful tasteful? Yeah. Well, they taste good while having all these wonderful medicinal properties. The seeds pop up regularly in major seed catalogs. This is one you can probably find Burpee, Park, Vesey, any of the major seed catalogs. And you can also find the herb wild and gather seeds or transplant a plant to your garden. They're small. They have deep, glossy, shiny leaves and bright red berries. That's what you see in the snow. You'll see those bright red berries peeking out under a blanket of snow. Really makes a hike in the wintertime very much nicer. They're just a real treat. When everything's white and frigid cold, you pick up that berry. It's got that kind of minty wintergreen, like wintergreen gum type flavor. Plant has an aromatic warming property when eaten. Taken as a hot tea or included in a bath, it can help break a fever, good for sore joints and muscles, etc. Its evergreen nature makes it a welcome addition to a garden and really just kind of makes life a little nicer to have around. I mean, a cold day, nice hot beverage, that's a go-to in the wintertime where I live because it grows right in my front yard. So if I'm sitting there and it's, minus 20 outside and we got about 4 feet of snow on the ground covered in ice, and I go out to the wood pile and I go over there to where I know the wintergreen is under the snow, and I kind of break it up and dig up. Oh, there's a big fresh handful of wintergreen. I can go in and put the kettle on the wood stove and have a nice hot cup of tea by the, that's a really nice way to spend a winter day, actually. Well, you probably know. I mean, I love music. I was a musician for a long time. A huge record collection. My uncle was a DJ. I inherited all his records. I've got tons of vinyl, and I got one of those modern turntables that also has like a cassette and CD and a little port where you can convert everything to digital, so you can back up your whole collection. You can put everything as an MP3 and save it. It'll burn CDs, or you can just hook it up to your phone and load your music up on there if you want just a rip straight off of vinyl. And on those cold, snowy winter days where you're not going anywhere, I love to dig through the old record collection, find something I haven't heard. I think, I know exactly what it was. Otis Redding's Blue album. Fantastic soul music album. I mean, if you haven't heard that one, man, it was good. I mean, it's got Try a Little Tenderness on there. Wow. So many of his great hits. So many of his great hits. I've been loving you too long to stop now. So I mean, there I am, mountains of North Carolina, and pop on an old crackly record of Otis Redding sitting there by the well, I think it was fire in the fireplace at that time. Big hot cup of wintergreen tea, and just yeah, that's living. That's good, peaceful mountain living, and yeah, that's good stuff. All right, y'all. So remember me when you're shopping for Christmas presents. I can be your last minute go-to if you need, or if you want a nice treat for yourself. And don't forget my spoons. If you have a special order, please get it in right away. JudsonCarrollWoodcraft.substack.com. Go listen to some Otis Redding. That's good music. Or the Old Brother Where Art Thou soundtrack, if that's more your style. Get some get, Ralph Stanley singing, "Oh, Dad, won't you spare me over for another year?" That was so cool. I cannot tell you. It was like I was at a little bluegrass festival in Ohio. I think it was Ohio that time. It could have been Tennessee. And it was just a little place. And there's Ralph Stanley. He was only about 4.5 feet tall, and he was about 90 years old at the time. And he gets up there and he opened with Old Death, and I mean, you could have heard a pin drop. Everybody was just, I mean, here was a legend of bluegrass and country music. The man who invented that sound singing Old Death. And I mean, it was just one of those magic. It sent chills up your spine. It absolutely sent chills up your spine. That was the last time I got to see Bill Monroe too, at that same festival. That was something. Yeah. Anyway, y'all, have a good one. We'll have a couple more shows between now and Christmas. So, but I will go ahead and wish you a Merry Christmas. I think we ought to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. Heck, if they're Jewish, wish them a Happy Hanukkah too. Hanukkah celebrates the Maccabees, which were incredible heroes. If you have a Bible that contains the book of Maccabees, be sure to read their heroism, their bravery as warriors. They were under the oppression of the Greeks at the time, who just slaughtered masses of people and used them as examples. So like there's a story of like a whole family, the mother and all her sons, where they were like, burned alive and their skin flayed off of them, their tongues cut out and all that, and they would not give up their faith. This should be in every Bible. It's a real shame that it was stripped out of many Bibles. It's the book of Maccabees, first and second books. Wonderful story. Everyone should know it, and it'll really strengthen your faith and your resolve. They were Jewish, but this should be part of the Christian religion. I think anyone could take a great deal of courage and fortitude from the Maccabeans. Fantastic. And the other thing I want to get started. I posted last night on all my social media pages. Be anti-woke, wear fur. I think we really need to get people back into wearing fur and wear it as a protest against the woke mobs, against the liberal, leftist, vegan, and all that. Be proud and wear fur. Because why is this important? As preppers, we know that there's going to be a time when we have to rely on ourselves for food, and the most reliable way to put meat on the table is trapping. And you look at states like Colorado, where they've essentially outlawed trapping. They started by saying, "Oh, how dare you wear fur? Some animal suffered for that." Well, meanwhile they're wearing leather shoes, so let's not even get into that. Then they take away our rights to trap. And then they start restricting our hunting and fishing rights. I know they have in North Carolina, big time. We need to counter that message, and I'm going to encourage, I want to challenge everyone. Post on your social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever you do. Truth Social, Gab, MeWe, Getter, I'm on all the good stuff. I don't mess with Facebook. But if you're on Facebook, post this message. Be anti-woke, 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 wear fur. I would love to see thousands of people boldly walking into restaurants and bars and theaters and shopping malls or wherever the heck you go, Walmart. That's where everybody seems to hang out these days. Don't ask me why. Wearing a fur coat. Fur for men, fur for women especially, and be ready to stand up boldly for your principles. Modern leg hold traps are very humane. And modern trapping is very humane. You have offset laminated jaws. The animal does not get hurt. I mean, you can stick your own hand into one of the traps. People, there used to be a whole fad of people on YouTube, all